and welcome to another episode of The Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Steph.
And I'm Elle.
And I'm Jay.
And we have survived another 31 days of horror. Give yourselves a pat on the back, because we did that. You clapped for yourself, Jay. That's not what I asked.
This is the
I
podcast.
disappeared.
They don't know what it is. I could be a Foley artist here.
Listen, we use video now, thank you very much. So
Yeah,
everyone's going to
sometimes.
know that you clapped for yourself.
If you're watching this instead of listening to it, just pretend I did the thing. For me, not for them.
All right, guys. I wanted to do something a little bit different. Normally, we would just jump right back into covering one movie a week, which is a lot more manageable than what we just did for the past 5 episodes. But this is our 3rd year. And I think that that's exciting. So I wanted to mark that with just a little chitty chat about the journey that our little podcast has taken. So Jay, you are not on as many episodes as we were. Elle is the captain. Elle championed all of us, watched all of the movies. Didn't finish Santa Sangre, but that doesn't even matter because you attempted it. Okay. And then it was me, and then it was Jay. Jay, I would love to know what your favorite movie was for this 31 days of horror.
Hands down has to be Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. I know it wasn't my number one in that episode, but it was good. I enjoyed it a lot.
That's valid.
It's a classic. And me and Elle had a great conversation about like art and ownership and stuff like that. It was really nice. It was a good episode and it was a good film.
Honestly, I really can't choose just one because it's different recording it and then listening back. I had a really good time listening back on our episodes. And at this point in time, the last episode hasn't been edited. Didn't get a chance to listen to it, but I vividly remember that the last week of movies, with the exception of Amusement Park, was exceptional. Okay. And I think my favorite, honestly, is going to have to be Knife Plus Heart. Not because it was flamingly gay. I mean, that's a big piece of it, I'm going to be honest. I really wanted to include it because I feel like good queer horror is not often brought up, even though, like, I'm so gay on this podcast. It's just really important to me this time around to cover a good variety of movies. I think we did that. I think we learn something new every time we put these lists together. And this time I learned that shamans scare the fuck out of me. And so Knifeless Heart was my favorite to talk about, honestly. There was just a lot of good in that movie. Like Chef's Kiss, it's definitely one that I'll watch again. But The Sadness, it was my number one movie. It was my favorite. Horrifying in capital letters. You guys know how I felt about The Exorcist. The internet knows because we covered it. And after I murdered that movie and threw it in the garbage, I was like, nothing can scare me anymore. And I watched a couple other exorcism movies because in my mind, because I hadn't conquered that beast, that was the scariest you could get. Nothing is scarier than The Exorcist in my mind. And whenever I hear other people say, oh, this was the scariest movie, I really think about it because I'm like, not judging them, but like, would that scare me? The Sadness scared the fuck out of me. I've never felt like that watching a movie before. So
Would you say you felt sadness?
no. I felt nausea at certain points. I felt boiling rage. I felt unrealness with the wheelchair scene. I mean, the end all for me, honestly, was the fucking baby. And I just didn't think anyone would put that in a movie. You know what I mean? I never would have imagined that. One of my wildest. To The Sadness.
It's really interesting to hear the different emotions that we feel and associate with horror movies. Because it's not always just genuine fright. Sometimes it's like really insidiousness. Sometimes it's guilt. Sometimes it's like nausea. But other times it's like an unnervingness. And that's what is great about horror as a genre. It can incite so many emotions like that. And then we can have a scene where like fucking a dwarf is dressed as Chucky running up some stairs.
That is also my cup of tea. Everything you just said. The thing for me is that like I think about Hellraiser and any other number of, gory movies. It's not for everybody. But I could literally watch some, like peel the skin off of someone and be like, oh, and then you make a baby, have a zombie sickness, and I can't even fucking handle myself. You know what I mean?
The experience I've had with this podcast is some films we will watch and some of them will fall into a category of not scary, but like good filmmaking, shit filmmaking still scary, or shit filmmaking is shit, those sort of things. And the way you describe that there is like, oh, you can handle any sort of gore, but that fucked with you.
Yes, it hurt my chest, and I actually feel a little sick to my stomach thinking about it. Might be burned in the back of my eyelids for a long time. Alrighty, it's Elle's turn. What was your favorite movie this 31 days?
Well, I have a ranking of all 31 movies, and I will say that the top 20 I enjoyed. The bottom 11 I would never watch again, or I mean, I might, I guess, if somebody else was watching it and I like had to drop in on it, but I would avoid it. At the top of mine is Glorious, and I think that Glorious was such a like out of left field. It was something that was really funny. It had, like cosmic horror elements to it. It had really good character work and consistent lore. It ticked all the boxes. Right underneath it is PG. I loved it. It was like if Trailer Park Boys was a horror movie. It had the same vibes. Like and then The Wailing was next, which was one of the ones from the last week, VHS, and then
Mm.
The Sadness, which was Steph's favorite. So my top 5 is very much just the ones that were kind of the gems of each week. I would say the one that got the most emotion out of me or like reaction is probably Tailgate, and it was not a good
Mm.
one. I have anxiety disorder, and that just made my anxiety really hard. So it's not something I would seek out watching again. It was a well done movie though. Yeah, I would say out of the problematic ones,
Me
Hounds of
too.
Love, Gator Bait, Amusement Park, Death Ship, Dawn of the Beast, See for Me, Tailgate, of course, Witchboard, which was just stupid. That was its only sin, was being fucking stupid. To be honest, I might watch Santa Sangre again if I had the energy. I have like old person sleeping disorder, so I fall asleep a lot, and something that long has really got to keep my attention, and it just didn't.
It does have to keep your attention because it's 2 hours, and The
Yeah.
Wailing is 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I was like on the edge of my seat reading that whole movie and I loved it. It's number 3 on my list. And the only reason why it's number 3 is because the other 2 have funny elements to them and I prefer a funny movie, I guess. I think my favorite conversation we had was for Nosferatu the Vampire when we were talking about the little boy playing the
Yes.
violin over Jonathan's busted body when he jumped out the window to try to escape.
Honestly, that scene just made me laugh so hard. And yes, I do like to sip giggle juice while I watch these movies, but I love little nuggets like that. You're supposed to be taking this movie really super seriously, and then this guy doesn't tie in a fucking sheet, knocks himself unconscious, and a little violin voice, like the world's smallest violin.
Yeah.
Oh, for Jonathan Harker.
Well, that and of course, that man is covered in doo-doo.
Duty man.
And me taking inconvenient gulps of water.
I love that because the hardest thing I think is when we're doing this 31 days of horror and everything is just so serious back to back, or a horrible nuisance like Hounds of Love, and you don't get any comic relief because horror doesn't always have to be serious. It doesn't just have to be scary, you know. And we had an interesting conversation because a lot of these movies, and all of it is okay. Everyone's opinions and reactions to horror movies are valid, where I'll question whether or not she was even a horror fan because of the elements that were bothering her. And that's one of the most important conversations that I want to have around this podcast, because we started it as the 31 days of horror thing and we kept going. And I think that there has been a lot of growth on this podcast, and there's been a lot of self-realizations that we've had. And one thing that I personally love about this podcast is how, even though we may roast each other sometimes, we're very like accommodating, accepting, because everyone likes what they like. Everyone is different. Everyone is triggered differently. And one thing that I hate seeing, hearing on the internet or whatever is you're not a real horror fan. That needs to be deleted. It needs to be erased. It shouldn't be a thing. No one can tell you.
Because genre is nebulous. If you think about what fits into the horror genre bracket, you've got short stories by Stephen King and the same stage as fucking the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes, you know? It's fun, terrifying, disturbing, campy genre, and
Yeah.
no one can tell you what it is. They can give you a vague idea of what it is, but no one can tell you what horror means to you.
I think for me, it was just like the realization that so much modern horror is like there's not even a supernatural element to it. It's just all about human beings being terrible. And I just don't need to be convinced of that. I don't need to watch dramatizations of people being horrible. I see it every day. What I like about horror is the otherworldliness, the possibilities beyond the rules that we have to live by in day to day life, and the storytelling possibilities that come to play when you have these supernatural elements that are interacting with your plot and your characters. So for me, like watching something like Hounds of Love was just torture. I was just mad. I don't like when pets or children are preyed upon, or especially when they're tormented or assaulted sexually. Then I was just starting to think about it because like Tailgate is kind of the same way to an extent where it's just a terrible human being terrible to another terrible human being. And it just got me thinking, where do I fit in here?
Yeah, you fit right in where you belong because just like anything else, horror fandom is a spectrum. There's some shit I will just never fucking be into. I can go on and on about the practical effects that go along with gore, and for me, it's artistic, and I'm just like, how do you make this from nothing? I famously sat through that Never Sleep Again documentary, the behind the scenes of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise that was 4 hours long. Ate that shit up, and I have ADHD. You know what I mean? It is a spectrum, and that's one of my favorite things about us having this podcast, having this platform, because we've gotten a lot closer since having the podcast, even though we literally only talk about one genre. And I think we've started some important conversations, like what is a schman and how it doesn't just include men. It includes all horrible people like Julia from Hellraiser. I think those are important. And then also, you know, we try to stick to a certain thing, but there have been times where we've wandered away from the template that's at here. First thing that comes to my mind is the fucking 2-part Evil Dead episode that Jay and I did.
That was very fun. It was a lot of fun just making that with you. And it just goes to show that we had so much more in that episode and we cut it down.
Yeah.
We talk a lot.
And we argue. We talk a lot, especially Jay and I, and it's like if we don't have our other Gemini to keep us on a leash, we end up with a 2-part fucking episode about one movie.
Not exactly. So it's not exactly like that you need a moderator. Jay and I did, what was that? Is it Bringing Out the Dead, that Nick Cage
Yeah,
one?
the Nick Cage one. Yeah,
And
yeah.
we ended up talking for so long about the fucking healthcare systems in our different countries. And I cut that
Yeah.
all. Like, you just have to be ruthless with the edit. I am ruthless. I will say 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. I'm just a ruthless editor. So
There was
just so much to talk about.
This movie, it's just so good.
I still haven't watched it, so.
This won't be a part 3, though.
No, we won't get into how good it is. Please go watch Evil Dead in 2 parts anywhere you find your podcast. But it's one of my favorite memories as making this podcast because we
were on Zoom
before they capped us at 40 minutes. This is Zoom's fault, if you want to get technical. We sat on Zoom for hours, drinking, vibing, arguing.
We tried to do them in blocks. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was Slasher Month, so we did that and something else, and then it was like
Unhinged after that. Like there was no putting the fire out, and we just like kept going.
One of my favorite memories is the first time I heard Elle speak was in the first recording that I was a part of, and she had no video on, so I was like, "Is Elle like 6 foot tall and built like a linebacker?" That was my image of Elle in my.
Yes, I have a masculine voice.
No, I think you were drunk at the time, or you were drinking at the time.
Oh, she gets very assertive when she's drinking.
You went in on that shit film, and it was just, I was like, oh wow, that sounds intense. Macho man, Elle Savage.
Damn right, you use the wrestling shit.
Oh my god.
I'm more of an SCSA fan, you know? I like my men in little fucking spandex underwear, you know? It's okay.
Or old guys.
You know, it's all a joke, though. I actually don't like men in general.
Except for this one.
Editor's note, Steph is pointing to her background, which is an image of young Ted Raimi in Intruder. I have a thing for like tall fucking nerdy guys, and really if he had a little bit more hair, I would be even hornier for him. The glasses, the long hair, the lankiness.
It's doing something, yeah.
Mhm.
It's the face permanently stuck like this. Like it was the obliviousness. He had no fucking idea what was happening.
That's what you look for in a man, obliviousness.
Absolutely.
That's your perfect man. And yet, Adrian Brody and Slice did not do it for you.
You see,
You
the thing
know-
about that is I had a crush on Adrian Brody when I was a teenager, but then I watched Splice with you guys and I was like, fuck this. What the hell was I thinking? This is disgusting.
I had
This
no
man
idea we
fucks
killed-
frogs.
He fucks frogs. Hashtag confirmed. Hashtag confirmed.
Allegedly.
Allegedly
Confirmed,
Allegedly
Allegedly.
confirmed that he allegedly fucks frogs.
See, and because of this, we have an entire cinematic universe of things I've said wrong and also characters that we've
Jeff
made up.
Irwin.
Ooh.
Jeff Irwin.
That bitch. That
That
fucking
bitch.
bitch.
That bitch, Jeff Irwin. Steve
Yeah.
Irwin's long lost evil twin
You know,
kills wildlife and is a well known ivory poacher.
what can I say? And I have a hearty diet of the devil's lettuce, which, makes these episodes extra juicy. So I will
The
not
Devil's
apologize.
Lettuce was one of the films that we got rejected for 31 Days.
Yeah, we'll never watch that. But the Ginger Dead Man?
Oh, Parker told me afterwards, like, Gary fucking Busey.
That's
Yeah.
right. But again, the star of that movie was the Butcher Baker. So again, a
Literally.
wrestler.
So they can't all be bangers. And that's another thing that I love about this podcast is that, I almost said we don't disintegrate. We don't discriminate.
We don't
Here
disintegrate
at
either
JKM.
yet.
Not yet, but I don't know. This edible is doing something. So there's still time.
Editor L, what is something that you've personally cut from an episode that you wish we could have saved and put out as something
But on
else? It just didn't.
Patreon.
There was a lot of stuff from actually the Splice episode that stayed on the floor because we got a little vulgar. I was drunk and stoned during that episode, and I believe that Steph was as well. And it was a very goofy movie on top of it. So
It's very unserious and it's very questionable that he banged his experiment baby.
yeah,
His iguana daughter.
I think Jay called it salamander pussy. I don't know if it made
Oh my god. No, I've never said those words in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, now it's the math is mathing up here.
Yes, beautiful things got left on the cutting room floor, but
Well, the thing that I've cut out the most, I feel, is me going,
or me doing it, or like
laughing like
Not-
a gaggle of chickens, and Jay and I talking shit about J.K. Rowling and how she's a cook. That I have cut out a lot of that.
I've
Never
left
regret
in
that,
when
yeah.
I've edited them.
J.K. Rowling can go fuck herself and yeah,
Her.
die in a fire, bitch.
Jesus.
In Minecraft.
Die in a fire in Minecraft. I hope you lose all your diamond armor. Because we make a lot of Harry Potter references, and it's not because we're fans, it's because we were fans.
You guys
And
were.
that was a big part of like our childhood or like our adolescence growing up and seeing these films and watching those books. It's not because we respect her. We very much do not.
Yeah, I
No.
just have kind of like the meme version of understanding that, like what I've read on the internet, because I was too busy reading stuff I shouldn't have been reading when I should have been
Oh my
reading
god,
Harry Potter.
I thought she was gonna call us fucking nerds.
No, like you were doing something that was completely acceptable for your age group and stuff. Like I was getting shoved into lockers because I was reading The Wolfen.
It was Elle's villain origin story. You
Yeah.
guys aren't the worst for ums or ahs. You see the amount of time it takes me to say a fucking sentence in some episodes?
Oh, we know.
I have a
We know.
pause of like 10 seconds between two words, and it's because I want to think of it carefully and I want to say the right words. But I should come to the
No.
table with that already. I should
No,
come with fully
no,
formed. Oh.
Jay, you're so much easier to edit than me, who doesn't think linearly, doesn't say the right words half the time. And sometimes I'm like listening back and I don't finish a thought because another thought thought comes in and I chase that one instead, and I never finish the original one. So when I go and edit that other one out and I'm like, let's finish this, nope, it's not there. And then I will say stuff with like Neanderthal fucking grammar because I don't know, my brain is not firing on all cylinders. And most of the time I'm fucking awake. I'm not drunk. I might have not had enough coffee.
I have had to multiple times speed up my sections, like
I've
by
never
the
had to speed
smallest
up
amount,
yours.
so you
I
don't notice.
never. I
I
just
think
take
that we're
off.
all aware of our own.
Yeah, but I think both of you always have really good takes. You have really great opinions. I think you compliment me very well. I think everybody brings something special to the table. And you guys are literally having an argument over who's the worst to edit. And meanwhile, I literally have an episode with my sister on it where we're both shouting Gail Weathers' vagina.
Okay, but the
So-
only problem with that episode is that it should have come to me first so I could boost the volume. It wasn't even you that was the problem, it was the audio. You are
This
fine.
retrospective is a little bit of a look behind the curtain about what goes on, and it's just us spinning wheels and going fuck, shit, to ass.
Literally, because every time I edit an episode, I end up putting snippets of it on Snapchat because they're so fucking stupid.
One of my favorite moments when editing an episode was it was just Elle saying okay, but the way the sound like bar showed up, it was like a little thumbs up.
It was so okay that it visually looked like it too, you know?
Yeah, must have been.
It must have been a very okay thing.
So many great moments in this podcast.
Yes, I have another one. I'm not currently on the dating apps, but when I am, I make sure that men know that I have a podcast because 9 times out of 10, I'm not getting a date out of it. But if I get a listen, a win is a win. And so they'll ask me, what episode would you recommend? And I'm like, oh, fucking boy. I recommend The Witch because you will hear me saying titties pecked out by crows.
I
Want to
love
fucking date me? I don't know what does.
Backwards
I
play
loved
titties.
that recording session so much. I wasn't even in the episode. I was just
No.
lying in bed beside Parker while she was recording with you guys. And every now and again, all I would hear coming out of the headphones is just riotous laughter. I think you guys took like 2 hours to record that episode because you kept pausing to go pee. You guys were drinking too much beer.
I
It
have a
was
tiny baby bladder. So.
it was chef's kiss.
My face hurts.
If you or a loved one have been contacted by Stef to listen to this podcast, you may be entitled to some compensation.
By compensation, you can kiss my ass.
I do feel like
I mean,
that's
it's a date
good
nap,
move
so.
though, because if you can't handle me drunk talking to my friends about backwards clay titties, then you can't handle me, bro.
That's my thing because this space was created so that we could be unhinged horror fans. Every episode is marked E for explicit, which is also a warning I give when I hand out the
Jesus.
episode recommendation.
I thought you meant that's also a warning I put on my dating profiles.
I mean, it gets there because sometimes people will apologize for dropping an F word, and I'm like, have you heard my podcast?
Oh my god, dude. I have not had anyone say anything remotely interesting ever on a dating app. That's why I
No, it's usually not. It's not a good time, especially South Florida. It's awful. It's like a dumpster fire. But Jay doesn't have to worry about that.
I do not.
If I wanted to be bored, I'd go fucking watch Dawn of the Beast again. I'm not gonna fucking get on a dating app.
That's valid. All right. Well, I hope that this podcast is around for years to come because there are just so many horror movies coming out. Okay. I just recently watched several that need to be spoken about. Barbarian, Smile, Halloween Ends. Am I right? Yeah. Glad it's over. But I'm especially happy that I get to do this with you guys because I love you.
Love you too.
That's nice.
That's awkward. We have a good time here. And hopefully that wasn't a boring episode because we're actually going to have more kind of like this because we have a whole lot more to say than just roasting movies.
And if you're listening to an episode of our show and it's about a film you know, we're not going to bother recounting it to you because if you're listening to it, you better have watched it. Because why the fuck else would you be listening to us saying vague things like crow titties? You don't know what crow titties are. You have an idea. It's wrong.
It's wrong.
Those are kind of a difficult thing to edit as well, because when we do finally get around to the opinions, it derails the plot. I'm not a fan of that format, I will say, but sometimes it works, especially on movies that are, I don't know, confusing and we kind of need it recounted. But I also think that it might be just enough to say this is some confusing bullshit.
I agree. And those are honestly my favorite episodes when we have less to say about the plot and everything else to say about what the fuck did we just watch.
And there are episodes when we don't even touch on a lot of what happened in the film. We just love like a little bit of the story, and we're going to talk about that and expand on that. It's like when Elle and I recorded Dawn of the Dead, because you just went in hard on capitalism and we
As I
talked
do.
about what art
As you do.
means and all that stuff. And to be honest, I don't think we said a character name the entire time. If you're here, chances are you like listening to us. And maybe, who knows, you would like some GITM merch. You can check that out over on our Redbubble under Sage Cigarettes Magazine. If you look that up, you can find all of our different things.
I think we should wrap things up here. In the meantime, you can keep up with us on our website,
ghostinthemagazine.site.
You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter if you wanted to at WitchXPudding.
And you can follow me at Nocturnical.
And you can follow me at Atlas_Snow.
Okay, bye!